But in the meantime, it is deep dive time. So our deep dive this week is going to be on South American rugby. Um, we have the World Cup coming up, and we need to make sure that we're giving enough attention to everyone who joins it. And we have uh, a record number of South American teams. So I thought it would be an interesting time to jump in and understand a bit more about rugby in South America beyond what we know with Argentina and things, and just educate us all better. So, can you see my screen, mate?
And indeed, very smooth this week. Look at us.
Yeah, look at that. So this is my deep dive on South American rugby, your preview for the 2023 World Cup, everything that you need to know about Uruguay, Chile, Brazil, and more. So, like I said, we've got a whole three South American teams at the World Cup this time around, which is a record. We've never had more than two before. So Argentina, we know about Argentina. Have been a huge rugby nation for decades and decades. Are a staple fixture and obviously in the Rugby Championship. Uruguay came onto the scene a few World Cups ago, so this is at least their third World Cup in a row. Um, they were definitely there in 2015 and 2019, played against Wales both times, and they're up in Pool A this time, alongside New Zealand, France, Italy, and Namibia. And then both Argentina and Chile qualifying for the World Cup famously in a dramatic playoff against the USA. If you want to know more about that, head over to Squidge Rugby, which I'm sure you already have, and check out all his videos about Chile and things. They're the perfect thing to get up to speed on those guys. So Argentina and Chile are both in Pool D with England, Japan, and Samoa. So just to give us a bit of context then, we're not going to cover Argentina too much in this video because they get a lot of press anyway, being in the Rugby Championship and things. We're a tier 2 show, so we're going to be talking about Uruguay and Chile and maybe a couple of others. So how is everybody getting on? So Uruguay and Chile, like every other World Cup team, have been playing warm-ups this summer, and Uruguay have been going very well. So Uruguay are the only tier 2 nation to win all of their warm-up games. So this is the list of all the tier 2 teams. I've thrown Italy in there as well because Italy don't get enough love or enough coverage over here in the UK. So I've got Italy in there just for context. So Uruguay won 3 out of 3 games. So they've got a 100% winning record, better than Fiji, better than Georgia, better than Samoa. They are arguably the world's form team, other than Ireland, right now. They know what it's like to win, which is more than he could say for Wales, sadly. Anyway, Chile, on the other hand, they've not been going so well. So Chile have played 4 warm-up games and they've lost every single one of them. And in terms of points difference, only Romania have been going worse. So it's a bit of a worry for Chile at the moment. They really come into this as underdogs, and as we'll see in a moment, they could be in for a tough time. So one thing that I think everybody wonders about these smaller nations, these minnow nations, the likes of Uruguay, Chile, and then people like Namibia, and previously the Pacific Island nations before Moana Pacifica came along, is where do the players come from? You know, where do they play their club rugby? Do they just play domestically in Uruguay and Chile? What's the standard of that like? Is it even professional? Well, I'll tell you. So, as of a few years ago, there is something called the Super Rugby Americas, which is a type of format that we're familiar with. It's similar to URC. It's similar to the Super Rugby, obviously. It's similar to the Rugby Europe domestic competition, which I'm sure we'll talk about on a future show. It was founded in 2020, previously under the SLR name, rebranded to Super Rugby Americas in 2022. And that includes one team from North America, which is the American Raptors. Yes, it's an American team that doesn't play in MLR. They're based out of Glendale in the middle of America. There's 2 Argentina teams, which is the Pampas and the Dogos. There is a Brazilian team, which is the Cobras. Great name. There's a Chilean team, Selknam. There's a Paraguayan team, Yacare. I'm so sorry to all my Spanish-speaking friends. I'm getting all these wrong, but bear with me. And then there's Peñarol from Uruguay. So these are professional teams. This league is looking to go places. There was rumours a couple of years ago about a Canadian team joining. I reached out to a Canadian follower on Twitter for confirmation of that. Didn't get a response, so that looks like it was an idea at some point that died away. Obviously, they've tried to get all of this off the ground right when the pandemic struck, which has obviously held back what they wanted to do. But yeah, it's brilliant that we have this professional league now going on, and it gives the pathway to these players to get to international level. So the 2023 season was won by the Uruguayan side, Peñarol. They won 10 out of the 12 regular games. It's a very normal round robin league style, so it's not split into conferences or anything. It's just everyone plays each other twice. Peñarol dominated, and then they beat the Dogos in the final. And you can see the guys celebrating here. Isn't that nice? So focusing on Uruguay first then. So what I've got here is a graphic representation of Uruguay's results since the last World Cup. So they've played a decent number of games for a tier 2 side. Tier 2 nations play way fewer games than any of the tier 1 teams, which is a huge problem in rugby. But Uruguay play a decent number. They also play a good mix of teams as well. So they've played other South American teams. You can see they played a lot of European teams, some Pacific Nations teams, USA. They played a secret team. Everyone on this list will have played the secret team, and I will tell you all about the secret team towards the end. Yes. So as you can see from the green here in this column, their form this World Cup cycle has been pretty good, and I think a good indicator of the fact that Uruguay are on the up. They're currently 17th ranked in the world, but they're on the up, and I think a good depiction of that is their games against Romania. So they've played since the last World Cup Romania 4 times. They played them away and got beat by 15 points. They then played them at home in a 2-test series. They lost the first by 8 points, and then they won the second by 6 points. And then more recently, they went away to Romania and they won the game by 5 points. So you're seeing this building, you're seeing this improvement. This is what we always say. Give these nations an opportunity to play the more established nations. They will get better, and it's happening right in front of our eyes here. Uruguay were due to host Wales in a 2-match tour when the Lions were on, so in 2021, but Wales backed out of that at the time. The Uruguayan Rugby Union was not happy, complained a lot. They put a lot of planning and preparation into that tour. It would have been the first time that a tier 1 nation would have played in Uruguay, other than Argentina. Wales, to their credit, are normally very good. Well, are very good at playing the tier 2 nations. We always play quite a lot of them, and we're willing to travel to them as well, which is great. But that was a missed opportunity for Uruguay, and I think that stung them a bit. So in terms of tier 1 nations, they haven't played any, unless you count Japan as tier 1. Oh, and they've played Italy as well. And they actually gave Italy a good game as well. That was, I think that was in Italy as well, and came within a score of them. So Uruguay very much on the up. Uruguay, for me, will be the strongest of the tier 2 South American teams going to the World Cup. Moving on to Chile then. So Chile, not so good. So Chile have played the secret team. They've played lots of other South American teams. You can see a slightly different mix of teams here. So you got Paraguay in there. They also played a couple of club teams. So they played Leinster, I think, towards the end of last year. So that's very exciting. They played Brazil, obviously, a few times. They played Scotland at home. Scotland put a big score on them. That was in 2021, while the Lions were on as well. But yeah, so Chile have played again a good mix of teams. Unfortunately, they haven't got the results that Uruguay have got. So Chile are currently on a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 defeats in a row. And like I say, they're not playing the All Blacks in South Africa every week. They're playing mostly other tier 2 nations. You can see here they lost by 29 points to Tonga. And they've lost quite heavily to the secret team as well, which I'll tell you more about. So like I said at the beginning when I showed you the form table, Chile, despite their exciting win against the USA, sadly look like they're going to struggle in the World Cup. And if you can see the two USA games here, which are back to back, they lost one by 1 point and they won the other by 2 points. So they went through by 1 point on points difference. And I think USA will be kicking themselves. USA will be absolutely kicking themselves. They've looked okay on their European tour this summer. Big shock. And I think it was an upset. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like Chile have been able to kick on from there. Now, we wish all the best. We all know about their fly half being an incredibly exciting player, scoring unbelievable solo tries. Praying for them in the World Cup. They're ranked 22nd in the world. So obviously 20 teams at the World Cup, they're ranked 22nd. So there are teams ranked above them that aren't going to the World Cup. So yeah, like I say, pray for them. So that's Uruguay and Chile. So who might be the team from South America next to go to a World Cup? Who might be the ones to make it 4 South American teams at a World Cup come 2027? Well, at the moment, the best candidate looks like it's going to be Brazil. So Brazil are ranked 28th in the world. They mostly play other South American teams. You can see they play Portugal here, which is unsurprising. Obviously, there's the common language there. So that's a bit of a transatlantic derby, we'll call it. They've got some decent results. They've been getting better lately, but they are playing, this is where we talk about, is there a tier 3? This is treading the line of Brazil aren't really on the level of the likes of a Georgia or a Tonga. They're not really tier 2. They're arguably a tier 3 team if such a thing exists. So they've played mostly other South American teams. 4 wins in a row, including 1 big win versus Colombia. They also beat Paraguay quite handily as well, and USA reserves. But yeah, not really getting the opportunities at the moment. They are currently playing in a tournament that's being known as, I think, the South American Four Nations, where they're playing against Paraguay, Colombia, and a Chilean B team, both home and away. And they're currently winning that quite easily. So they're showing that they're a cut above that level of opposition. So it's all about getting the opportunities for those guys and getting the progression, and hopefully we'll see them at 2027. So finally, the secret team. So this is a secret rugby team, Ender. They have only lost 2 games since 2019. They've gone unbeaten at home since 2019. They beat someone by 139 points. They defeated Georgia and Portugal away from home in 2022, but they aren't at Rugby World Cup 2023. Any guesses from you, mate, who they are?
I have no idea.
No guesses? The South American?
No guess.
So I am talking about Argentina 15. So this is Argentina's B side. So it's cheating a little bit. They're not a national side, but they do play regular games against all of these teams that I've just mentioned. You can see here, this is the list of the games they've played that I've been able to find. Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, Uruguay B, Georgia, Portugal. Those are the games that they won away from home. Very impressive. And then this summer they played Namibia, Chile twice, and Uruguay. The only team that has beaten them is Uruguay. They've won every other game they've played. They beat Paraguay 146 points to 7. Paraguay, I'm sorry to any Paraguayans who have tuned in hoping to get their moment in the sun. They're really not really at this level yet. They've taken some heavy defeats. If you go on Paraguay Rugby's Wikipedia page, all it talks about is the times they've taken 140, 150 points off other tier 2 nations. Colombia is the other South American team we haven't mentioned. Sorry, Colombia, I haven't been able to find that much out about you, and you haven't really beaten anyone noteworthy. So you're probably, next time we do run the video, we'll talk about Colombia and Paraguay. But yeah, so Argentina 15. This is kind of what the Jaguares sort of developed into. So if I go to what it looks like, so this is the Argentina 15 squad. So I think since the Jaguares disappeared from Super Rugby, a lot of people were really worried about where are the Argentinian players going to come from. And Argentina have struggled to recover from that. So Argentina's World Cup squad has an average age of 29. So it's one of the oldest squads. They have multiple players who are like in their late 30s. I think they got one 39 and one 38-year-old player going to this World Cup. So they're using, I think Argentina have recognized that, and they're using Argentina 15, the B team, to get these new players in. So you can see where these players have come from. Most of them have come from the Super Rugby Americas side, the Dogos and the Pampas. Those players are then going into Argentina 15, and then those players then go into the Argentina seniors. So, like I said, the Argentina seniors currently a slightly older team. Most of those players are playing in the top 14 or the Premiership. There's a couple playing in the URC. There's only one Argentina full senior going to the World Cup who goes from Super Rugby Americas. So it's very much a development competition for them. But you can see, like I said, these two domestic teams feeding Argentina 15, who are then going out and playing these games against these nations. So yeah, so that's the secret team. So you'll be able to impress people. So I guess the interesting thing about Argentina 15, and you could also talk about Australia A with this as well, and the New Zealand Maori, is if we go to this global calendar where they're talking about a tier 1 and a tier 2 separate competitions, surely Argentina 15, the Maori and Australia A won't be allowed to play in the tier 2 competition, because that would be basically the tier 1 nation has got 2 teams. So you would get you would get Wales going, we want an A team in there. You would get England Saxons, Irish Wolfhounds going, we want to be able to play a B team in the tier 2 competition. So it's up in the air as to what will happen with these guys. Will they be forced to just arrange friendlies outside of international windows? You'd hope not. That's not going to really do anything for Argentina. So yeah, the big question mark over their future, because at the moment they are. It gives you a good barometer of where the other South American teams are, because Argentina 15 are beating them in some cases quite easily. They beat Chile 14 points to 13. So yeah, kind of a good yardstick for where South American rugby is at this moment in time. So just broadly about talking about trying to get more games into these guys, this is my last point. There was a Six Nations style tournament proposed for South America. So, well, not just South America, for all of America. So it would be the America's Rugby Championship. It would include Canada, USA, Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina 15, which sounds thrilling. That sounds exactly the kind of thing that we'd all tune in and watch as fans of Tier 2 rugby. It sounds like a great way to get these guys progressing. Sadly, again, they tried to get it off the ground in 2020, and the pandemic hit. So that got cancelled, and they haven't been able to get it off the ground again since. I sincerely hope they do. It's exactly the kind of thing that they should be doing. You know, it obviously is a very big place, but it's, as far as rugby goes, with how spread out all the rugby nations are, it is a logical, you know, lines of longitude sort of tournament that they're trying to put in here. So, you know, fingers crossed this happens, and fingers crossed that it's on TV, and so we can all tune in and watch it. So yeah, so that's my deep dive on South American rugby. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Any questions, mate?
Oh man, that was it's fascinating to see. I didn't know that as well, about, because that was the big question, wasn't it, when Aguirre's left Super Rugby, or essentially forced to leave Super Rugby, like where, you know, we all struggled to see where they'd go from there, and now to see that they're, you know, they've got this 15 side who are absolutely dominating certain teams, I suppose is good in a way. Like, is it sustainable? I don't know. Like surely they're like, for me, like, how is this financially viable to have a team just traveling around? They're like, I doubt the attendances at these games is great. That's my only concern. And having, you know, for Argentina, I suppose overall, having all these players dotted around the world. I mean, it was great when they were all playing for Jaguars, but look, it wasn't their decision. They were forced out. So we are where we are. But yeah, it's fascinating to see how well their second, Argentina's B team is doing. It does kind of put into perspective as well where Uruguay and Chile are at, isn't it? But very interesting topic.
Paraguay is an interesting one for me because Yasare, I'm so sorry guys, I'm probably pronouncing it all horribly wrong. They're competitive in the Super Rugby Americas, and you would think that their club team and their national team is basically the same team, you would assume. And yet it gets to the international level, and Paraguay are getting hammered, like 100 points put on them. Like Brazil are putting 60 points on Paraguay, and yet Paraguay's domestic team is beating Brazil's domestic team. So I don't know what's gone on there. So if anybody knows there's a story, maybe there's some kind of big scandal in Paraguay about the players refusing to play or something, I don't know, but it's a bit of a mystery. So one for us to find out about.